There's a city in Europe where the pollution is so bad, children struggle to breathe and the vulnerable are forced indoors. Exposure, the factory, investigates the role of a global multinational now.
His fortune has helped catapult QPR into the Premier League. Lakshmi Mittal has been at the top of the Sunday Times Rich List 7 years in a row. He is the chairman and CEO of the biggest steel empire the world has ever seen, worth billions. But is there a price being paid for the company's fortune? The Czech city of Ostrava has some of the most polluted air in Europe. Here, it's claimed that the health of the vulnerable is affected by pollution from ArcelorMittal's giant steel factory.
Small children have the biggest problems. They have flu, they get rashes on their face, their eyes swell. But the main issue is that they have problems with their lungs.
Some Czech scientists say the prevalence of child asthma close to the factory is some of the highest in Europe.
It's horrible. People shouldn't live here. This place should be abandoned.
One toxic pollutant, benzoapyrene, has the potential to cause cancer and damage DNA. Close to the Czech Republic's border with Poland lies the city of Ostrava. 2 steel mills, 3 power stations and 25 other factories all play their part in making the city's air one of the most polluted in Europe. Centre stage in the industrial landscape is a vast steel factory owned by ArcelorMittal. Covering over 20 square kilometres, it produces millions of tons of steel annually. It's Ostrava's biggest employer with a workforce of over 7,000. Britain's richest man, Lakshmi Mittal, the company's founder, chairman and CEO, personally signs off their policy promoting environmental excellence.
We're a steel company, and during the steel making process is a chemical process which obviously emits various pollutants.
In 2010, the factory produced over 1,000 tons of dust and gas, a toxic mix including one of the most dangerous cancer-causing agents known to man, benzoapyrene. The factory emitted 8 times more harmful air particles, known as PM10s, than any other plant in Ostrava. Some of Ostrava's highest pollution levels are in the districts of Radvanica and Bartovice, which lie in the shadow of the ArcelorMittal factory. Here, for nearly a third of 2010, PM10 levels broke EU limits. Dr. Eva Shalarova has been treating children in the area for 27 years.
We're coming into an area called Radvanice. Most of my patients live here. This is the epicenter of the worst allergies and asthma.
She treats over 200 children with breathing difficulties. Four-year-old Teresa is a typical patient. As a baby, she developed chronic lung problems, and she's already had pneumonia 3 times this year.
She has always had breathing problems. Every night her and her granny sit here having problems with their breathing. That's a good girl. Take a deep breath. She's got bronchial asthma and pneumonia.
Diagnosing asthma in children under 6 is very difficult. They are too small for invasive lung function tests. In order to verify her diagnosis, Dr. Shalarova refers her patients to a lung consultant and an allergy specialist.
It's very unusual elsewhere, but it's typical for this area. Children who live here have bad asthma from an early age.
The Academy of Science in Prague has examined some of her data. They believe that the asthma figures for her own patients are some of the highest in Europe.
Here in Radvanica and Bartovice, about 32% have asthma. And when you're talking about children aged between 0 and 6, it's nearly 40%.
Air pollution is directly associated with bronchitis and respiratory illness in children. But there is little evidence it causes asthma.
Morning, afternoon and evening. But in the morning she has to take both medicines. First Atrovent and then 10 minutes later Ecobac. And then just Atrovent. And in the evening Atrovent again, and then after 10 minutes the Ecobec.
Dr. Shalarova, who was elected as a local councillor on an anti-pollution platform, believes that the pollution from ArcelorMittal's factory is responsible for exacerbating her patients' health problems.
If these statistics are correct, of course they're concerning. But what we're saying is that I think one can't be speculative and just point to the steel plant and say this is the single source that is responsible for this. The other thing that I would say again, and it highlights how complex this is, according to Dr. Shalarova, her diagnoses of asthma and respiratory diseases is increasing, whereas pollution from the plant is decreasing. So again, why is that happening?
There is a ticking bomb here. We have to breathe bad air that is over the limit. If it carries on like this, we're going to have a health catastrophe.
We may be part of the problem, but I don't think we're the whole source of the problem, and I think we need to see better evidence that links the diagnoses that Dr. Shalarova is making to our plant.
The debate over who is primarily responsible for the high levels of pollution in Radvanica and Bartovice has been raging for the last 5 years. Jiří Bilik works for the Health Institute of Ostrava.
I work in the air quality sector at the Health Institute. I am head of the department and I am responsible for monitoring air quality and the impact it has on human health.
Bilik believes tackling industrial emissions is the #1 priority.
First, there is the dust, which restricts the ability to breathe, and then there are the elements which it carries. These are much more dangerous substances. For example, the polyaromatic hydrocarbons, arsenic, heavy metals, and dioxins. When you inhale them, these substances can be easily absorbed into your blood through your lungs.
In 2008, ArcelorMittal stated that they had a significant influence on the air quality at Radvanica and Bartowice. We do not deny being co-responsible for the air quality. Domestic heating, traffic, cross-border pollution from Poland and other factories all also contribute to the pollution. The CHMI are the official body responsible for monitoring air quality. They carried out a mathematical study to identify the major sources of air pollution in Ostrava. Using an air dispersion model, they calculated that in Radvanica and Bartowice, ArcelorMittal's factory accounted for 80 to 90% of the cancer-causing benzoapyrene.
They may be the official body responsible for measuring it, but we disagree with them. They haven't come to our plant and measured our emissions. They are basing their study on obsolete data. We're not hiding away from the fact that we are a polluter. Based on our own dispersion models, which are based on real measurements, we believe that our contribution is between 20 to 40% at given years.
Uší je totiž jedno z nejhorších v Evropě. Situace je opravdu neúnosná.
Desperate for tougher limits on all of Ostrava's heavy industry, residents appeal for the local authorities to act.
Náš počet tady ukazuje závažnost celé situace. Jsme obyčejní občané.
I'm on a journey around the fabulously diverse country of Greece.
Everywhere around here is history. Everywhere.
It'll take me from her historic cities. This is Delphi.
Look at this!
To her most remote outposts.
Very nice.
This is where Western civilization began. Drama, democracy, language, science, medicine. This country has given us so much, and it's influenced the fabric of our everyday life. It was here. Just sort of in the lap of the gods. Quite frankly, I was doing it for the viewers.
Joanna Lumley's Greek Odyssey.
Fantastic.
A brand new series starts October the 13th on ITV1 and ITV1 HD.
Join a host of celebrities as they pay tribute to the nation's unsung heroes.
You're a true hero. Congratulations.
Well done!
Rewarding acts of courage, inspiration and determination.
It's an honour, Judy, for me to give this to you.
It was a wonderful thing to do.
Ordinary people, extraordinary achievements.
Thank you for being such an inspiration.
The Daily Mirror Pride of Britain Awards 2011. Wednesday at 8 on ITV1 and ITV1 HD.
It's about knowing where you're going.
And remembering where it began.
It's hard work before glory. Love, pressure.
Let your nation find its voice.
And become who you were born to be.
This is what it takes to win.
The Rugby World Cup, exclusively across ITV.
Follow the Rugby World Cup live on ITV1 HD, online and mobile, or catch up anytime with ITV Player.
ArcelorMittal is the largest steel empire the world has ever seen. One in 5 new cars is made with ArcelorMittal steel. The company's corporate videos project images of sweeping landscapes and lush forests, like this one set in Brazil. Local residents are seen happily living and working alongside big business.
From the point of view of corporate social responsibility, it is clearly an example to the rest of the world.
The message is that steel production can be environmentally responsible. But in the Czech city of Ostrava, ArcelorMittal accepts industrial pollution is an issue. Pollution from their factory combines with traffic, domestic heating, cross-border emissions and other heavy industry to make Ostrava one of the most polluted cities in the EU. It's January 2011. The pollution is so bad that the local authorities have to broadcast emergency health warnings.
Varování. Informace pro veřejnost. Osobám s chronickými dýchacími potížemi, srdečním onemocněním, starším lidem a malým dětem se doporučuje zdržet se při pobytu pod širým nebem zvýšené fyzické zátěže spojené se zvýšenou frekvencí dýchání.
I think no one denies that there is a challenge for Ostrava with the pollution levels. We have a responsibility as a steel producer in the region. What our main point is that this does not mean that we are by any means the only polluter in Ostrava.
Ostrava sits in a basin surrounded by mountains. When there is no wind, cold air gets trapped, forming a lid over the city. It's known as an inversion. With nowhere to escape, the pollution levels build. This primary school in Radvanica is a mile from the giant ArcelorMittal steel factory. Here, they follow a familiar drill.
Takže v době inverze děti jsou unavené.
During the inversion, children get tired. They cough a lot. Many don't come to school. Their asthma causes so many problems. Their parents sign them off sick. Those that do come tend to be sleepy and have red eyes. It's very unpleasant and alarming.
Nepříjemné a alarmující.
We try and keep the windows closed. We make sure that physical activities are kept to a minimum. There's no PE, no outdoor trips.
By avoiding strenuous exercise, the children inhale less pollution. The playground lies idle.
It's difficult to breathe, the air is gloomy and dusty, your eyes burn, it's difficult to exercise, and sometimes even the air stinks.
ArcelorMittal are taking steps to alleviate health problems here. They contribute to a fund which pays for curative stays in the mountains for children from polluted areas of Ostrava. ArcelorMittal have also donated incubators, lung ventilation systems and nebulizers.
I give him an inhalator. He really doesn't mind. He breathes through it. I give him a lot to drink and he gets by.
The nebulizer gives 3-year-old Christoph a respite from his breathing problems. All his mother Camilla can do is offer comfort.
He just wants to lie down. He doesn't want to eat, and he breathes very deeply, like he's trying to catch his breath, like this. He's constantly coughing. Nothing interests him, and he's always thirsty.
Trying to do her best for patients like Christoph, Dr. Shalarova distributed nebulizers sponsored by ArcelorMittal.
This is the little machine. It has an ArcelorMittal label on it. It washes away the dust. It moistens the pathway to the lungs.
Some parents were not happy.
They refused it from ArcelorMittal. They wanted to return the inhalers because the company keeps on endangering children's health. They refuse them because they have principles.
I
think it's very sad to hear that.
In what sense?
Sad that obviously they didn't feel they could accept something that could perhaps have made a positive difference.
With the whole city already on a pollution warning, the weather forecasters are predicting further bad news.
Overnight, the temperatures fell. The inversion looks likely to continue. The concentrations of pollution are increasing. They have exceeded the limits. This means we're going to have to issue a smog alert.
Pollution levels are now 3 times over the EU limit, triggering health warnings that move from worrying to unbelievable.
Osobám s chronickými dýchacími potížemi, srdečním onemocněním, starším lidem a malým dětem se při překročení zvláštního imisního limitu doporučuje omezit pobyt pod širým nebem.
The advice to all: stay at home and keep your breathing to a minimum. ArcelorMittal and 2 other large factories are told by the authorities to reduce their emissions. The lung wards in Ostrava's hospitals brace themselves for an influx of the seriously ill. Not only the young, but the elderly too.
The hospitalized patients mostly have obstructive pulmonary diseases, obstructive bronchitis or asthma. They also have inflammatory diseases like pneumonia, especially complicated pneumonia. When we have an inversion, we definitely see more patients in our emergency section. Their chronic illnesses get worse, and we have to admit them to the hospital.
Lung consultant Dr. Jana Skova believes that the pollution limits on heavy industry are not tough enough.
It's horrible that for so many years the authorities weren't able to force ArcelorMittal to install more effective anti-dust filters.
ArcelorMittal did install new anti-dust filters in September 2011.
We are cutting our emissions. When we took over the plant, it was at 2,000 tonnes. And since then we've reduced it to 1,000 tonnes from some of the investments we've made.
Angry at the city authorities' perceived failure to impose tougher pollution limits on all industry, hundreds turn out to demonstrate.
Náš počet tady ukazuje závažnost celé situace.
Zůstala celá.
ArcelorMittal is singled out by sections of the demonstration.
Bezkonkurenčně největším znečišťovatelem je však ArcelorMittal.
Taking up the challenge, Ostrava's mayor tries to address the demonstration. But the organisers don't want him to speak. In the scuffle, the mayor falls.
Že jsme mu nedali slovo a že jsme nebyli politicky korektní. Vypořádáme tuto demonstraci, je zcela v naší dikci, koho si tady pozveme a koho zde necháme mluvit. Přátelé, co ovšem potřebujeme, to je, aby zákony byly dodržovány.
Inside City Hall, the deputy mayor says that heavy industry is not solely to blame for the pollution.
When it comes to air pollution, we have three main sources. There's industry, there's domestic heating, and then there is traffic. All three are responsible for pollution. I don't care which one is worse, because we need to try and reduce all of them.
However, he suggests that ArcelorMittal's factory is the major source of pollution in Radvanica and Bartovice.
ArcelorMittal is responsible for nearly 90%, maybe 80% of the air pollution in that area. It's obvious.
The deputy mayor is wrong. And the deputy mayor, I think, is basing these statements on CHMI report. But what we don't accept is these claims we're responsible for 80 to 90%. I suppose in some ways we're a natural factory for people to point at and say they must be the source of the problem.
For many years, the Czech authorities permitted ArcelorMittal's factory to emit pollutants at the top end of the national limit.
ArcelorMittal Ostrava, as a plant, complies fully with all the legislation of the Czech Republic. And I should add as well that the legislation, environmental legislation in the Czech Republic is actually quite stringent.
Jan Sitter works for the Czech non-government organisation, the Environmental Law Service. He is an outspoken critic of ArcelorMittal. He believes that their permitted emission limits are too high. By law, local conditions have to be taken into account. He claims insufficient allowance has been made for the factory's proximity to residential areas, and the fact that EU air pollution limits are often broken in Radvanica and Bartovice.
Improving the operation permits for ArcelorMittal is a very, very slow process. They are denying that their share is so big, which means it's not us, it's you, by driving a car and burning coal in your local heating that is causing your problem.
The regional authorities have recognised that the emissions from ArcelorMittal's factory need to be cut. In 2012, their PM10 limit will be reduced by 60%. Dr. Shalarova's next step was to take her data to one of the country's leading experts on air pollution.
McKay. It's all good.
Scusi, 4 biscotti, per favore?
Introducing new Baileys Biscotti flavour, now available at Tesco.
When we look at the world differently, it allows us to do different things. Whether it's mortgages that make coming home feel extra special. Or chasing great savings rates so you can sleep a little easier. Nationwide. On your side.
Max and his son were homeward bound when treacherous rain dropped down and down. Safety was threatened throughout the trip. They slipped and slid. Their tires couldn't grip. Then along came the Michelin man, who reminded them the right tire changes everything. So with Michelin tires in place, rainy days weren't so risky anymore. Michelin Energy Saver stops up to 3 meters shorter, tested against its predecessor on 14-inch tires. Michelin.
You know, it's great having hundreds of channels, but scrolling through them all to find what you want is, well, you know. On the other hand, with Virgin Media's TiVo box, you can search for your favourite show, actor or director and find loads of stuff they've done in seconds. Easy. We think it's the best way to watch TV ever. But what do you think? There's more online.
I've been growing gambling potatoes for 32 Red Online Casino for years now. Must be something good in our soil. We still sort them out the old-fashioned way and bag them up proper before they go off and made into chips.
Get £32 of free chips, no deposit required when you register at 32red.com. The casino of the decade.
I still find time to try and win a few back, though. Now then, what number shall I put it on?
Ah, Barcelona. I've been to Barcelona.
Ça c'est moi sur Las Ramblas.
That's me on Las Ramblas?
La Sagrada Familia.
Sagrada Familia. Oh, check out this hot girl I got together with there.
Ça c'est ma petite sœur. Elle vit là-bas.
Your sister?
We're powered by people who travel. Expedia.
In the Czech city of Ostrava, the world's biggest steel company, ArcelorMittal, stands accused by some doctors and environmentalists of emitting pollutants which endanger the health of local children.
It's a very difficult situation for those children and their parents. It's a feeling of not being able to breathe. It's very stressful. It's a horrible feeling. It's mentally exhausting.
It's February 2011, and there is welcome news. The weather forecast predicts conditions are about to change.
Dobré odpoledne. Nečistot v ovzduší Moravskoslezského kraje ubylo. Koncentrace polétavého prachu na všech měřících stanicích dál překračují limity. Na rozdíl od
The week-long inversion shows signs of lifting.
Podniky dále fungují podle přísnějších ekologických pravidel. Tolik zprávy. Hezké odpoledne přeje Milan Opavský.
Ale nesnažíme se o rekonstrukci jeho života a díla.
Life begins to return to some normality. At last, white sheets can be placed out on the washing line without turning black.
Of course, there is a lot of dust here. When the wind changes direction towards us, you can't even open your window. You can't breathe. I say that because I'm old and I have breathing problems, so it affects us a lot.
Although this inversion has come to an end, its effects will be felt for weeks. In In one of the most polluted areas, Radvanica, Dr. Shalarova is visiting Matej. It's the 115th time she's seen him. He has a long history of breathing problems, particularly asthma. He's had bronchitis 15 times, pneumonia 8 times, and he is only 7 years old.
I have cold hands. Turn round. Take a deep breath.
Jak nejvíc to jde? Studíš, ne? Přežije. Otoč se, Pončo. Narovnej se. Tomu to trošku...
I hear wheezing on the right lung.
Vydechni. A hodně vydechni. Tak. A ještě jednou se nadechni. A hodně vydechni. Dobrý, můžeš se odechnout.
He's starting to wheeze again. I suppose he's getting pneumonia. Tomorrow we'll do an X-ray.
So far this year, Matej has been so ill that he has been forced to miss 3 months of school. Outside, the pollution levels are still so high he cannot risk going out to play.
Pneumonia is a very serious disease. It can cause permanent changes in the human body, as well as death.
Dr. Shalarova is treating over 200 children like Matej with asthma and respiratory conditions. Genetics and other factors like poor housing, diet and passive smoking are considered the major causes of asthma. However, Dr. Shalarova believes pollution from ArcelorMittal's factory could be playing a significant role.
That smoke over there, that greyish smoke coming from the chimney, you can see its real colour when the sky is blue.
Dr. Shalarova took her medical data to one of the country's leading experts in air pollution, Dr. Radim Shram from the Academy of Science.
Originally, when she put on the table her results, many people from Ostrava tried to say that this was not properly diagnosed.
I didn't let him go. I was assertive. I persuaded him that he was our last chance. For a long time he resisted. He didn't want to come to Ostrava.
Shram's team started to evaluate the medical records of 100 of her asthmatic patients. Scientist Dr. Jan Topenka looked at the pollution figures in Radvanica and Bartovica.
My thought was it is a really unbelievable situation in sense of the concentration of some pollutants, and also this children morbidity is extremely high.
The figures convinced the scientists to investigate further. Dr. Shram's team started to look at the effect different pollutants had on DNA.
This was something which was missing in past here. It means connection between air pollution data and biological consequences.
They carried out genetic tests on 100 asthmatic children from Bartovica.
We were analyzing oxidative damage and especially gene expression.
When compared against control groups, they found the children in Bartovica had damage to 9 specific gene groups. They concluded the genetic damage could be associated with the chemical pollutant benzoapyrene. Dr. Shram continues to investigate the possible association between this DNA damage and the children's respiratory problems.
We are probably at the very beginning to understand this process.
The scientists carried out further experimental studies. They installed fixed monitoring stations across Ostrava to measure levels of benzoapyrene.
It's a really strong poison, and it is probably the most important compound related to the air pollution.
The World Health Organization state that exposure to over 1 nanogram per meter cubed of benzoapyrene starts to damage DNA. In Bartovice, the level spiked at over 80 during one 24-hour period. Over 28 days in January 2010, they never fell below 9.
It means that if you would be under this exposure for a long time, or let's say for chronic exposure, it could increase your risk to cancer.
ArcelorMittal's own air dispersion modelling studies calculate that 20 to 43% of benzoapyrene in these districts could be attributable to their factory.
We are cutting our emissions and we are cutting our benzopyrene considerably. But if we stop producing tomorrow, if we shut the factory down tomorrow and 7,000 people were out of a job, the benzopyrene reading in Radvanica Bartovice would still be around 7 nanograms. So it would still be well over the WHO recommended safe levels.
Next, we ask a scientist to go to Radvanica to monitor the personal levels of benzoapyrene that Matej and Christoph have to live with.
It's horrible. People shouldn't live here. This place should be abandoned.
Oh, could you feed my fish before you leave?
Sure.
Need a number fast?
Give me 500.
Call 118-500 from BT.
My name's Emma Andrews. We are selling. No offers as yet. I was doing some research online and I discovered that yellow encourages a buying emotion. It's subliminal, but it just screams, buy me, buy me. You won't find a yellow bloom in this whole postcode.
Have you checked your agent has you on primelocation.com? They've over 4 million visits every month.
Nobody told me. Each to their own.
Good day, sir.
Tuesday, the most boring day in the week.
But for you, my British chums, not so dull anymore. It's another Euro Millions Big Tuesday with a jackpot of £85 million. It's going to be so fun! My name is Hector Riva. Welcome to my world! For your exclusive Meerkat toy by car, van, home or pet insurance through comparethemarket.com. Simple!
On a night like any other, Tom set off on a voyage of discovery, pausing and rewinding and sparking a fascination that would last a lifetime. Meanwhile, a delayed train gave Jack a moment to watch live TV, catching the headlines on Sky News. And across town, Sarah made sure she wouldn't miss the show everyone was talking about. Every day, millions of Sky customers can enjoy all this included as standard for only £20 a month. Just some of the many things we do because we believe in better.
Okay, so that's for the opening.
Not really feeling the balloons.
I agree. But I got this idea. Look, the guy should fly like rockets.
Okay, but we need more show.
Why not?
And then a totally bad boy beat kicks in. And what about the flags?
Let's do it like that.
Maybe we need bagpipes.
Eurostar, opening the way to London 2012.
There's a voice that keeps on calling me. Down the road, that's where I'll always be. Every stop I make a new friend. Can't stay for long, just turn around and I'm gone again. Maybe tomorrow I'll wanna settle down. Until tomorrow, I'll just keep moving on.
The atom was formed from air by condensation.
Someone needs a little romance, music, a little ambiance, and dinner.
New Baked Perfection cod with olive oil, rosemary and tomato makes any evening special.
What?
Birdseye. We love our food.
That's gratitude for you.
In the Czech city of Ostrava, air pollution is so bad that it often breaks EU legal limits. It has become a highly emotive political issue. Air pollution is known to be associated with bronchitis and respiratory symptoms in children.
Small children have the biggest problems. They get rashes on their face. They have flu. Their eyes swell. But the main issue is that they have problems with their lungs.
3-year-old Christoph lives in Radvanica.
He's had 4 X-rays since November and the situation hasn't changed. The pictures are identical. Anybody would say that it's a double pneumonia. The inflammation hasn't gone away.
Když to bude diagnostikovat někdo, kdo neví, jak to je, tak bude diagnostikovat oboustranný zánět plic.
We asked the Academy of Science in Prague to travel to Radvanica to test the children for one of the worst pollutants. Vlasta Sfakova will be conducting the tests. Her mission, to identify the levels of benzoapyrene that the children are exposed to. It is a dangerous pollutant. When inhaled, it binds directly onto human DNA, forcing it to mutate. Vlasta places monitors in 3-year-old Christoph's room and another on the windowsill outside. Seven-year-old Mate is big enough to carry a monitor himself. The personal monitors will record the children's exposure to benzoapyrene in their everyday life. There are currently no legal limits for benzoapyrene, but in 2013 the EU will introduce a target level of 1 nanogram per meter cubed. Christoph's measurements are well over this.
Ale v každém případě ty výsledky jsou strašné, když
The results are horrible. The numbers are 6 or 6.5 times higher. That's horrible. People shouldn't live here. This place should be abandoned.
Tak zasypat popelem a odjet.
Mate's results are better, but still well over the EU target.
Takže jo, testy jsme dostali.
Yes, we have received the tests. I can show you them. We found out that, well, on certain days, they found something both outside and inside. We think that it's dangerous for all of us, especially the children.
What else can we do about it? Nothing. We just have to suffer, that's all.
The scientific value of our test is limited, given the small sample size. But it does give a snapshot of the levels of pollution parents in the area face. ArcelorMittal are taking significant steps to lower their emission of pollutants. In 2008, they spent €40 million improving their impact on the environment.
One of the biggest investments we've made, which cost around €40 million, is the new dedusting machine. And it's got 44,000 filters inside it, and it captures the dust, and then basically like a giant vacuum cleaner, that the dust can be collected from there.
In total, since 2002, ArcelorMittal have invested over €400 million modernising their plant. In February 2011, they entered into a voluntary agreement with the Czech Ministry of Environment, the goal of which is the visible and sustainable improvement of air in this region. These investments are expected to reduce their total emissions of PM10 by an estimated 350 tonnes a year. ArcelorMittal have never broken the pollution limits given to them by the Czech government.
The situation in Radovanice and Bartovice is a big paradox, because you have big source of pollution that has all the permits that it needs for its operations. They are obeying these limits. They are saying we are not doing anything illegal. We are only polluting the air as we are allowed to do. And on the other side, you have people in Radovanice and Bartovice which are living in illegal air quality. So it's obvious that there is something wrong.
Ambient air quality has been bad in Ostrava for 150 years, and much, much worse than it's been today. The questions need to be asked: if the emissions are going down, but the asthma diagnoses are going up, what does that mean? Does that mean there's been some DNA changes decades before? The facts, to me, seem to show a much more complex situation.
Ostrava City Council told us that they are making investments to tackle pollution, but need help from Europe. They take all possible legal steps and more to get industry to lower their emissions. Their goal is to encourage investors with eco-friendly technologies to gradually replace the current factories that are harmful to the environment.
Although people might look healthy now, we will see the aftermath later.
We did not observe any other place all over the world where you would find 38% of children diagnosed with asthma bronchial. If nothing else, this should be a reason to understand that something is wrong, and that health authorities should act pretty fast.
We have actually now recently decided with the Health Institute of Ostrava that we should actually, or that the Health Institute has agreed to undertake a proper study, so that rather than all these guesstimates about who is responsible for what, we actually get a much clearer idea for who are the different contributors to the different pollutants.
ArcelorMittal told us they have committed to a €500 million investment programme for Ostrava over the next 5 years.